they also qualified damage in the case of this other GR86 owner. That car did 114 at one point in its life. They qualified that as damage that would exceed the bounds of the warranty. Guess what you do at track days? You go fast. That means, by this definition, Toyota's actual track day that they offer you with the car voids your warranty.
From Olympic City and the home of Pikes Peak, this is the Automotive ADHD Show with Matt West.
Oh, man. Toyota. What are you doing, man? What are you doing? Oh, man. Matt West here, hanging out with you, talking cars on the Automotive ADHD Show. We're going to talk about today what is going on over at Toyota right now. GR Corollas are catching fire. Toyota's denying warranty claims left and right, and for driving 85 miles per hour, apparently. Tacomas are braking left and right, and a sticker has caused a recall. All of that in like the recent weeks. This is crazy. Going to explain all of this through the filter of knowing that at the end of the day, Toyota can do no wrong. And so we're going to approach it from that perspective and explain exactly what's happening and why. Oh, by the way, and it's confirmed now, Toyota offers complimentary track days with their sports cars, their GR sports cars. Yeah, and those void your warranty now, apparently, even though they offer the track days. So we're going to get to all of that, and we're going to talk about how the National Park Service might write you a ticket for having all-wheel drive. We're going to get to that. And BMW doubles down on charging you a subscription fee for things that you already have. You thought it ended with the heated seats thing? Oh, no. It goes much deeper than that. And, of course, we're going to get to your car sounds and more on this edition of the Automotive ADHD Show. Now, I'm back from a work trip on the road. I spent the past week in Atlanta, or Hotlanta, as it's better known, and it was very hot. It was humid, and I was traveling with some work colleagues who were saying that, oh, well, it's not that humid, really. It's not that bad, actually. It's been a lot worse here before. And bear in mind, I come from Colorado Springs in particular, and the humidity, look, if it's more than 0%, that's too humid in my opinion, okay? Like I don't mind the heat, but, at least we have a dry heat. If it's 100 degrees, it's a dry 100 degrees, and I do sympathize with all of the folks who might be listening to this show as a podcast across the world. If you live in a very humid climate, you have my sympathy wholeheartedly. But by the way, don't come to Colorado. We're full. We're totally full. It's not worth coming here. Actually, it's terrible here, so don't come here. But anyway, something I've noticed as well that has been brought to my attention is that this show starts with from Olympic City and the home of Pikes Peak, right? With Lonnie Perkins, the voice guy, by the way. He's a tremendous voice talent. You've probably heard him on a few other things, too. But that being said, that it starts with Olympic City. Olympic City. Apparently, the Olympics have been going on. So I've been told. And they are now, I guess, concluded by this point. But it's just funny to me that through all of the Olympics, which only come, every 4 years, and my show says from Olympic City and the home of Pikes Peak. We do have Pikes Peak. I do talk about Pikes Peak. We do a lot of hill climb stuff. I haven't mentioned the Olympics once. And that's probably because the Olympic sport of wrenching on broken old Japanese cars and bashing your knuckles, trying to put engines in them that weren't meant to be in them, that's not an Olympic sport yet. And that's also kind of a long title for an Olympic sport. That's not an Olympic sport yet. And until that becomes an Olympic sport, there's probably not going to be a whole lot of Olympic coverage on this show. I regret to inform you that might be the case. Wrenching on old Japanese cars as an Olympic sport, that might be better than the breakdancing. I will say that much. That might be better than the breakdancing or whatever that was that we called breakdancing. So anyway, by the way, of course, if you're listening on the radio, here in Colorado. I'm doing this out of my home base in Colorado Springs, AM 1460 and FM 101.1, The Answer, or also 100.7 The Word, KGFT. You can also hear the show on there. But you can hear the show in Canyon City, KRLN, AM 1400 KRLN, and in the Wet Mountain Valley, 91.7 KLZR. But I cannot forget that a huge portion of my listeners, all two of you, by the way, do listen on the podcast as well from places other than Colorado. So if you're ever curious why the show says from Olympic City, that's because Colorado Springs is Olympic City. Now, I have no affiliation with the Olympics, I'll tell you that much. But we're Olympic City. We have the Olympic Training Center for the United States Olympic team, and it's pretty common to have Olympic athletes just cruising around here. Like, that's just kind of normal. If you grew up here, you would just think that's the norm. That's what you do. Part of that reason, I know this is automotive, this is somewhat divergent from cars, but, part of that reason is because we're a nice, developed city at a fairly high altitude, over 6,000 feet. So when you're training up here as an athlete, it's you're working against that lack of oxygen. You're training against that lack of oxygen, and then you go to sea level, which most of the time the Olympics are held at some place that is sea level, and you kind of feel like Superman. But the same thing, I'll tie this into cars, by the way. The same thing does happen with cars, though training here at altitude doesn't make your car faster at sea level. But that's one of those things that I think, as a Colorado native, and I actually grew up in the Wet Mountain Valley where this show also airs, but that town there, the town of Westcliff, is over 7,000 feet, and the house that I grew up at was like 8,000 feet. And you come to realize that when you drive a car at that altitude, you're dealing with like 30% less air density, essentially, okay? So like when I'm working on my car, I'm messing around with my standalone ECU to the chagrin of OBD1 Kenobi, who helps tune my cars. Every time I mess with something, he's like, stop touching it. But anyway, if I look at the map sensor, if I look at the actual air density that's coming into the engine, you can see this readout on the computer. We're at like 75. It reads in KPA, kilopascals, because I guess it doesn't use, is that a Freedom unit? I don't know if that's a Freedom unit, but that's what it's measured in. And I suppose the Freedom version would be pounds per square inch. But anyway, so we're at like 25, sometimes 30% less air density here at high altitude. And you just sort of become acclimated to that on how cars drive. In fact, growing up here, I'm used to, with stock cars, for example, a certain amount of response and a certain level of power. But if I take a road trip, if I'm actually driving to any state that's at sea level, and especially if you drive one of your project cars, you actually, heaven forbid, you try to do a road trip with it, and it actually goes well enough to at least get you to the place where there's more oxygen. I mean, it is kind of a weird thing. It is mind-blowing how much that makes a difference. A lot of times when guys are modifying cars up here, they're doing so, they're adding boost, and even a small level of boost, really only making up for the altitude difference. So I don't know. That was not a tangent I was planning on talking about, but, as things go on this show, I sort of just talk about what I want. And of course, we got a whole lot of other things to get to, of course. And, I will say, I think if we could combine the nice weather that we have here in Colorado with, by the way, again, like I said, we're full. Don't come here. But if we could combine the nice weather that we have with the low humidity, but add a little more oxygen, that would be perfect. This would be like car guy heaven. And I guess, look, if you look at Arizona, where Wesley Kagan, frequent guest on my show, is based out of, that's too hot. Yes, they have oxygen there, and well, in some parts of it, like Phoenix area does, but it's too hot. You look at any other place in the South, you look at anywhere on the East Coast, yeah, they have oxygen, but humidity. So I don't know where I'm going with this, but I'll tell you what, we do have it pretty good here, aside from the lack of oxygen, which is probably getting to my brain at this point. So, by the way, we've got a few other things to get to here on the show, and some exciting news from the Facebook page, and a few other things. So we're going to get to all of that and more. Oh, and I'm going to talk a little bit about how Ford has come full circle. Ford has come full circle with the new Mustang. We're going to talk about Toyota. Oh man, we have to talk about Toyota. Me, as the self-proclaimed Toyota nut on this show, we got to talk about that. So all of that is coming up here on the Automotive ADHD show. You've tuned into the Correct Car Show. I'll talk to you here on the other side of the break. Don't go anywhere.
And now for how things work with an engineer.
Transmissions. Shift.
And that was how things work with an engineer. More of how things work can be found at facebook.com/automotive ADHD.
You know, you can send your car sounds into my show, facebook.com/automotive ADHD, and I play them here on the radio as well as on the podcast. And the video of it, just like that video with Jack's car, gets featured on the YouTube as well as Rumble and wherever this show pops up on video, which you can watch it on video, YouTube, Rumble, wherever that. Oh, Facebook too. Facebook. It's video on Facebook as well. So, hey, we are branching out, going everywhere, and that is great if you want to share your car sounds too and have them on the show. So, by the way, and you can do that at facebook.com/automotive ADHD, and that's and there's a pinned post at the top of the page. You go over there and you post your car sounds into the comments. And the great thing is, when you do that, the other people on the page get to see it too, and it's a whole lot of fun, and we all get to share a love for cars. And by the way, when you also do that, by the way, there's a lot of stuff. I'm saying that quite a bit. But over here, if you're watching on the video, speaking of which, I'll wave it in front of the microphone for the radio and audio listeners. But Automotive ADHD keychain right here. It's a nice embroidered keychain. It's got, well, the name of the show on it. This one you're looking at, this is my personal one. It lives on my keychain. These are the Tacoma keys. I probably shouldn't say that I own a Toyota anymore after what we'll talk about coming up, but these have greasy fingerprints on it, and you do have to put the greasy fingerprints on the keychain yourself, though. Just throwing that out there. Those aren't included. Those are pretty easy to put on, though. But you can win that as well as a $25 parts store gift certificate and an As Heard on the Automotive ADHD show sticker right there. If you're watching on video, there it is, out of focus, albeit on the back of my laptop. And then you can put that on your car. So all of that, facebook.com/automotive ADHD. I'll pick a winner every month. I'll DM you if you've won. And that's one winner every month for the gift card. I should say, and I did say this last time on the show, that I can only send those gift cards within the United States, just because I know the gift cards work in the United States. If you're in Slovenia or something, I'm going to have a hard time sending you a gift card. I can send you the sticker and the keychain, though. I haven't found anywhere where I can't do that yet. So, hey, send those car sounds in. Also, quick mention on the Facebook page, almost at 1,000 followers on the Facebook page, which is awesome. That is very cool. And, you know, that to me is fantastic. And I know folks listen to the show here on the radio. You listen on the podcast. And if you don't like the Facebook page, you're missing out on some other fun stuff and those car sounds. So go check that out. Facebook.com/automotive ADHD. And a quick mention for listener Colin. He's a longtime listener of the show, an OG listener, you could say. He told me on good authority, he sent me a couple of things. You can also message me there on the Facebook page, that he works perhaps for a dealership. I won't say which one, because I don't want to rat him out to his boss that he listens to this show. I mean, come on, that's how embarrassing is that? But he did inform me that he has on good authority Subaru for the upcoming model years after 2026 might be returning to physical buttons for like climate control and stuff. You know, if you've listened to this show for any length of time, that I am a big proponent of physical buttons for things. I want physical buttons on everything. I want my car to look like it has the cockpit out of an airplane. I want that. I want gauges. I want buttons. I want knobs. I want all of it. Okay. And that is a hill I will die on. I absolutely will stand my ground and I will die on that hill. But it seems like, enthusiasts like me and people who maybe just appreciate older vehicles share that opinion. However, it seems like that opinion is starting to trickle down to the wider consumer base. Perhaps the fad of having touchscreen buttons for literally everything, perhaps that fad is dying out and people have discovered that, gee, this is kind of hard to use. This makes my car more difficult to use. Not only that, it makes it unsafe. I've talked about a true scientific study that has looked into it. And I mean, physical buttons, they're literally safer. A, they work by muscle memory. B, you don't even have to take your eyes off the road. You can do it by feel, which is, come on. Like, we don't have to reinvent the wheel here, okay? Colin did say that controls are going to go back to physical buttons with separate modules. Also, by the way, making the radio, in theory, I don't talk about rumors and hype on this show very much, but I do appreciate Colin mentioning this on the Facebook page, that in theory, if all of this goes according to plan, the radio might be replaceable too. Now that's interesting because we have older cars with radios that, of course, are replaceable. Your single DIN, your double DIN radios, things like that. And obviously, you can put a more modern head unit into the car, right? That can modernize an otherwise outdated, from a technological perspective, car. My Tacoma's a 2012. I have Apple CarPlay in it because I've got a newer head unit in the car. Truck, whatever it is. Toyota. Hesitate to call it one of those now because mine actually works. But with that being said, that's interesting, especially when you're looking at modern cars where you've got all these big touchscreens. They're on everything. They've got all these different modules and things that control them and all this stuff under the dash. And thinking that you're almost going back to the olden days of, oh, I can take out the head unit and put something else in that I like better or something else that's more modern. Think about it 10, 15 years down the road when all of this stuff in the cars is going to feel incredibly dated. But the car otherwise is fine, right? Like that is, I think, it is underrated, that notion of being able to modernize a car as time goes on. Is a aftermarket head unit with a touchscreen, does it look as good as the OEM unit? Probably not in terms of the aesthetics. But when when these cars are older, they're not worth as much. It's just the daily driver. It's, or a fun project car. Having that flexibility is good. So anyway, thanks to Colin for sharing that. And of course, you can share your thoughts on the Facebook page. You can message me directly, direct access to me. I can neither confirm nor promise how quickly I can respond to you, but I will get to you as soon as I can. Sometimes work is really busy. I try my best, though. So now this is interesting. Speaking of touchscreens and digital stuff in cars, Ford has come full circle. Okay, so you may be aware that the current generation Ford Mustang has screens for gauge clusters. I will give a pass to gauge cluster screens. I still like an old analog gauge cluster, but I will give a pass to gauge clusters as screens because as opposed to having this, iPad, basically this tablet in the middle of your dashboard that doesn't look like it belongs there, it can at least look pretty integrated with a gauge cluster. And not only that, it can display some stuff and change how it displays stuff in a way that is genuinely useful to the driver, depending on the circumstance. I do like that. If I'm cruising around, if I'm on a road trip, if I'm somewhere unfamiliar, I would love to have the map take up the whole gauge cluster area and just have my speed and a few other things in the bottom corner. If I'm just cruising around on the highway or navigating an unfamiliar city or something like that, that to me is really handy. That's more intuitive than having, a center stack with a big screen. Of course, you can also have some fun with it. And that's what Ford is doing because they have pushed a software update. We're talking about software updates for cars now. It's crazy. But they've pushed a software update that allows you to have the gauge cluster out of a New Edge or like SN95 to New Edge Mustang. So that's like late 90s, early 2000s. And this is the funny thing to me because when I think of a cool classic gauge cluster, I'm not thinking of an SN95 Mustang. I'm not. I'm just not. As someone, I actually owned, I had a New Edge. I had a 2003 Mustang for quite a while, actually. It was the 2-valve V8. 5-speed transmission, manual. It was a fun car. It was a really fun car. It was a great burnout machine. It wasn't really that fast. Those 2-valve modular V8s aren't like the biggest powerhouses in the world, but it made a great noise, and it was really good at burnouts. And I liked that car a lot. I traded it for a motorcycle, heaven forbid. But it was either way. When I think of the gauge cluster in that, I don't think that gauge cluster looks like it was lifted right out of like a Ford Explorer or a Ford Excursion or any Ford pickup truck of that era. But you can, in fact, have the gauge cluster out of that now. I can see why Ford would say, hey, you want to have a gauge cluster out of an old 60s Mustang. You know, it's vintage looking, it's nostalgic, it's cool. Well, it's nostalgic for some people. But for other people now, we got to remember that, look, people who are nostalgic for cars of the 60s, you know, are on the older side now. And yeah, I'm pointing a finger at you. Yes, I'm calling you old, but that's okay. I'm not saying in a bad way. But if you're watching on video, by the way, go ahead and check this out. I will go ahead and lay this. This does come by way of the drive, by the way. Hat tip the drive. And it's even got a little animated graphic there. Look at that. That you can see it. Again, if you're unfamiliar with what I'm talking about, if you're listening on the radio and you're like, why is he showing a video? Just picture the gauge cluster out of a Ford Explorer from like 2001. You can have that now as your digital gauge cluster. And you know what? You can have the fancy looking one too out of the SVT Cobra. The colors are a little different. Getting kind of pedantic with that, but I do think it's interesting. And we'll throw that up there on the video too. The comparison of the original versus what you just saw there a little bit ago. And I'll take it though. I'll take it. You know what? If you can add a little bit of fun, a little bit of nostalgia. Look, a guy buying a new Mustang right now, he might be kind of nostalgic for the old 90s Mustangs. It's crazy to think, but those old Mustangs from the 90s and early 2000s, I'll tell you, they are a bargain for what they are now. They are cheaper. They're probably, here's the thing, because like the Fox Body Mustang, the previous generation before that, the Fox Body used to be the cheap go-to Mustang. It really did. You could have it cheaply. You could swap another V8 in it. You could hop up the 302 or whatever you've got in it and have some real fun with it. And that was the cheap go-to. But now Fox Bodies are kind of becoming classic. Even though they were mass-produced, they have some classic appeal to them. And that even goes back to when I was talking to some folks from Hemmings on the show. That like when we're looking at cars, future classics, or currently starting to become classics, those 80s, late 70s, 80s Mustangs, those Fox Body era cars are getting interesting. So that being said, the new performance bargain, the SN95, that's the jelly bean looking one. Then the new Edge, which is basically the same Mustang, but with some edges on it. So, hey, there you go. If you buy a brand new Mustang and you wished you had a $2,000 SN95 off of Marketplace and you overspent and you want the gauge clusters out of the old one, well, now you can do that. So, hey, don't go anywhere. We're talking about Toyota. Oh, man, there's so much stuff going on there. That's coming up after the break. You're listening to Automotive ADHD right here.
Colorado Springs' #1 car show by default. This is Automotive ADHD.
Yes, it is. Matt West hanging out with you, talking cars on the weekend. And there's a lot of stuff to get to here. Of course, with Toyota doing some questionable things, even though we know they can do no wrong. So that's weird how that works. But before we talk about that, you got to hear about this. So Drumstick, like the ice cream company with like the little wrapped up ice cream cone things you get at the gas station, they're giving you a chance, hear this out by the way, to win a ice cream truck that is like a giant, it is a giant ice cream cone. But if you've ever been around on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace when it comes to weird project cars, or maybe a cheap daily driver, or a car for your teenage kid, one that's, not too nice because, they're a teenager and you know what they do to cars. But anyway, Drumstick has this giant ice cream cone truck. Okay. It's kind of like the big hot dog truck. You've seen that, but ice cream cone shaped. And here's the catch though. It's not for sale. They're not just really giving it away. It's up for trade on Facebook Marketplace. And now here's the catch, though. Here's the catch. And the idea is that you need to have the most creative trade-in offer for it, by the way. Like, and so this goes to, like, if you've ever done Facebook Marketplace deals with cars or anything like that, browsing through there late at night, looking for a project car that you're going to tell your spouse that you didn't buy, and she's going to wonder why it's suddenly in the driveway. But they say they're looking for creative trade-in offers. So they're saying, some ideas to get you started are like, maybe, I'll trade you, an old family reunion T-shirt, or, I'll trade you my pet's naming rights and name your pet drumstick, whatever, right? Something like that. But I have a proposal. You see, I'm in a unique position, sitting here at the radio station at the studios, at AM 1460 and FM 101.1. The Answer. Well, that's where I'm doing the show. Right? I'm doing the show from the garage studio, piping it into the radio station. But I do have a unique opportunity to say, what if we trade, hear me out, the radio station's truck that they take to events and stuff. It's got AM 1460 and FM 101.1, The Answer on one side, and then it's got KGFT 100.7, The Word on the other side. It's got this nice vinyl wrap. It's a Dodge Durango. It's a good looking truck. And I mean, come on, everyone loves a radio station truck. It's got all sorts of cool radio station gear inside of there. It's pretty neat, right? And now I probably won't get my boss's approval, but that's my offer. I will trade the station truck for this ice cream cone themed truck, because even from a radio station perspective, how cool would that be? You go to some event, some live broadcast, right? And maybe some breaking news thing, and instead of showing up in your branded station vehicle, you show up in a giant ice cream cone truck with ice cream in it, presumably. I assume it comes with the ice cream inside of it. I think it does. I would hope that a truck shaped like an ice cream cone also contains ice cream. And come on, you're winning. You're winning everything. And so anyway, I'll ask the general manager here, Chris Gould, by the way. I'll ask him for his approval on this trade offer. So I'll let you know how that goes. So I got to touch on this real quick here. 4-wheel drive versus all-wheel drive. There is a difference, and there's a difference, and there's a fairly significant difference. So much so that the National Park Service says they will actually they can actually ticket you if you don't know the difference, especially if you're off-roading in a national park that requires to be on the trail 4-wheel drive. And people might say, yeah, but my Subaru Crosstrek is all-wheel drive, and it's basically the same thing. Well, not quite. And it's not quite the same thing enough for the National Park Service. And this comes by way of a Redditor who posted a letter that they received from the National Park Service warning them. They did get a warning, and they got a warning first before they got a ticket, but they warned them that their Subaru Crosstrek is not allowed on the Colorado River Outlook Road, and that's in Canyonlands National Park, by the way. And they might say, well, come on, it's a vehicle advertised for going off-road, and it's got all-wheel drive. What's the difference? And the difference is somewhat semantics, yes, because in a 4-wheel drive application, presumably your car has 4-wheel drive, and it has 4 wheels, and all the wheels are driven. In an all-wheel drive vehicle, presumably the car has 4 wheels. Most of them do. Some of them don't. There are exceptions. There are exceptions to that. But presumably all of the wheels are driven. So if there's 4 wheels and they're being driven, then all-wheel drive is 4-wheel drive. Not necessarily. And it does come to semantics with, the way these things have been marketed and the way, 4-wheel drive came to existence many, many, many decades ago. But typically speaking, and this is what here's how I would define it, because you will get varying definitions. And I think my definition is, albeit very close to the National Park Service's definition, which is that a 4-wheel drive vehicle is usually going to have a selectable 4-wheel drive system. So you can say, I'm in 2-wheel drive, or I want to be in 4-wheel drive. An all-wheel drive system oftentimes is automatic. It is operated by various, types of couplings and differentials and things that send some power to the front and some to the rear, depending on your all-wheel drive system. There's also clutch-based systems, and the computer can regulate typically what gets what. And the computer decides what you need based off of either what it sees or if you've selected a certain traction mode. I'm on gravel roads right now, or I'm in slippery mud or snow. You have different settings for that. One other key distinction, in my opinion, is with a selectable four-wheel drive system, and no one's really even saying it this way, but I think with a selectable four-wheel drive system, one of the biggest things that differentiates that from an all-wheel drive system is the ability to change the gear ratio. When you go into four-wheel drive low, you have now significantly changed the gear ratio of what the car is doing. Not just the final drive and the differentials, those stay the same, but in the transfer case itself, you're gearing down, you're reducing wheel speed, but you're adding a significant amount of torque at the expense of that wheel speed. When you're in four-wheel drive low, it's very slow. Or, you can even think of it, it's not quite the same as like a dedicated crawler gear. You can have four-wheel drive low and a crawler gear. But I think that is definitely one of the things that defines a vehicle as being true four-wheel drive. When you have a transfer case and a different gear ratio that you can select for that through that transfer case to gear things down, and that that gear reduction, I should say, gives you precision. You can be very precise with what you're doing and crawl. You can have the vehicle, if you've driven a four-wheel drive, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm preaching to the choir here, but you can crawl at a very low speed. You can crawl at like a walking pace. With my $800 stroker Jeep, I can be in an open field in the middle of nowhere, put it in four-wheel drive low, first gear. I don't even have to push the clutch in or do anything. I just let the clutch out without giving it any throttle, and it just creeps forward. I can jump out and walk alongside it, and it'll just slowly do its thing, right? And that gives you a lot of control in difficult situations. But another thing is that oftentimes vehicles equipped with true four-wheel drive, I won't say all of the time, but there are many times, even from the factory, that a four-wheel drive vehicle is also equipped with some sort of locking differential. A locking differential usually in the rear, and then your really higher trim, like your Jeep Rubicons and stuff, they're going to have a locking differential oftentimes in the front in addition to that. And you have to understand, too, with a differential, it is a differential. It allows the wheels to spin at different rates, because when you're going around a corner on dry pavement, the inside wheel is going to spin at a different speed than the outside wheel because they have to travel a separate distance from each other. They are separate in the distance that they travel, and that's going to affect the wheel speed. So you want that. But off-road, that's not necessarily what you want. Especially, that's how you get one wheel spinning. The wheel that's got traction isn't spinning, and the one that's slipping is spinning. That's what happens with that. But National Park Service, they want you to have the right thing for the right trail. And again, most of your Subarus, any of those SUVs, crossovers, they might get you in trouble. But it does come down to driver skill. I will say that. If you have a well-equipped vehicle and poor skill, you'll probably still get yourself stuck. So, hey, just so you know, be on the lookout at the National Park Service. Don't go anywhere. We're talking Toyota. Oh, man, things are going bad with them. That's after the break here on Automotive ADHD. All right. Hey, you are listening to the Automotive ADHD show. Matt West here, hanging out with you. Talking cars on the weekend. Got to get to this. Oh, man, I've been telling you about it during the whole show. Toyota, things aren't going well with Toyota. And, and to give you some context, it is no secret that I do like Toyotas. In fact, I do feel a Toyota breathing down my neck here at the garage studio. That is a crusty, rusty AE86. I wonder if the battery's going to run down with the lights on. Anyway, don't worry about it. But so I did make a silly video on my social media a few months back. I was replacing an O2 sensor on my Tacoma daily driver, and I was replacing the upstream O2 sensor, that is, okay? And the upstream sensor is harder to get to. It's before the catalytic converter. It's kind of a pain. In fact, it was a lot of a pain on this truck, like sort of almost like it wasn't really intended to be serviced in, with the engine in the vehicle, that kind of thing. But But in this video I made on my social media, and you can follow me on my personal Instagram, Sir Matt West, but also Automotive ADHD on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok as well, YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to it on YouTube if you haven't. But in this video, I made an accusation that because the reason for this O2 sensor placement being kind of honestly terrible wasn't that Toyota designed it poorly or had some other design constraint, or I don't know. No, my logic was that Nissan was actually responsible, because I think in the night, Nissan sent a group of engineers to break into the Toyota design department, and they took the blueprints out, scribbled out the part that the Toyota engineers designed, and then penciled in a worse design, something like, that Nissan would do, perhaps as an act of sabotage. And now, granted, people on the internet weren't quite up to speed on that sarcasm exists, but let's put that aside. But I have more bad news though, which is that the Nissan boys are back at it, and that is truly the only explanation I can think of for what's going on with Toyota right now. I mean, think of it. Occam's razor, by the way, right? Think about this. The simplest solution is usually the answer, or something like that. Yeah, keep it stupid simple, right? There you go. But anyway, that clearly I think is the only logical reason for what's going on at Toyota right now. Couple of GR Corollas, by the way, have caught fire. And the GR Corolla is the cool performance-oriented one. It's all-wheel drive, turbocharged 3-cylinder with a manual transmission, rally-focused sort of aesthetics, and I'll point this out, comes with a track day when you buy it. That's very important for the rest of this story. But one gentleman was driving his GR Corolla on the highway, 23,413 miles, well within Toyota's factory warranty, by the way. And the car lost power. He pulled off on the side of the road. It caught fire. Flames engulfed the front end of the vehicle and destroyed the whole front portion of the vehicle. And Toyota comes along and he says, well, hey, that's not right. That shouldn't happen. By the way, worth noting that the car isn't modified in a way that would do that. You would say, oh, if he's got an aftermarket turbo, he's done something to the electronics, that could cause a fire. Well, not in this case. The car's stock. For all intents and purposes, it's stock. And here's the thing. He files a claim with Toyota. Obviously, I'm assuming his insurance is going to come along, pay him out. But he's filing a warranty claim with Toyota, if he's not doing an insurance claim himself. But Toyota cites a reason for not honoring the warranty here. And this hat tip Motor One, by the way, for bringing the story. And that would be Christopher Smith at Motor One, by the way, for getting this. But here, I'm going to put this up so you can kind of read along with it as I do. And this right here, go ahead if you're watching on video, YouTube and Rumble, go ahead and check this out. So the owner's manual warns not to drive in excess of the speed limit. Even if the legal speed limit permits it, do not drive over 85 miles per hour unless your vehicle has high-speed capability tires. Driving over 85 miles per hour may result in tire failure, loss of control, possible injury. Be sure to consult a tire dealer to determine whether the tires on your vehicle are high-speed capability tires or not before driving at such speeds. I gotta take a breath before this, because here's the last line. Based on our inspection findings and the facts relating to this incident, we cannot provide any assistance in this matter. I'm sorry, you what? You what? Really? Okay, let's get this out here first. For one, they are saying that this is the reason they're declining his warranty claim. By the way, the tires not being performance-rated speed tires, the GR Corolla, because it's the performance one, comes with performance tires. It comes with tires rated for these speeds. Now, Toyota goes on to back this up by saying that, well, we pulled the data on the vehicle, and at some point in its life, it did 114 miles per hour. I don't know, maybe at a track day? Maybe at a track day. Not that it sat at 114 miles per hour when it caught fire. It was just pinned at that speed, and in fact, I probably could do more and be just fine and reliable. That's not an issue for a performance car. That's not an issue whatsoever. Sustained high-speed operation. Ask the Germans with the Autobahn if sustained high-speed operation that's the reason we have to decline the warranty claim on that. They said it qualified as abuse. Really? Now, there was another GR Corolla, very, very similar incident. This one had 8,146 miles, or the odometer reading at their last service was that, and then it was a little bit more at the time of this incident, somewhere around 9,000. But again, well within the warranty period here. And this owner got another response from Toyota. Take a peek at it. I'll read it as well here for our audio listeners. But in response to your concerns, a vehicle inspection was conducted and blah, blah, blah. We'll skip ahead here. Based on the inspection findings, the cause of the fire could not be determined. Therefore, we are unable to offer any assistance. Toyota, what? Why? Why? That's what I have to say. But here's the thing, okay? Toyota has track days that they offer with their GR series cars. That's the GR Corolla, both of these vehicles in this case. That's also the GR86 and the GR Supra, their sports lineup. You literally get a track day when you buy one of these. And you get, as well, they offer you a membership with NASA, the sanctioning motorsports body, kind of like the SCCA. Not the NASA that goes to the moon, not that NASA, but the NASA that drives on racetracks. That NASA. And you get a membership, you get a track day, you get all of this stuff. And they even have a website. Here, I'll pull it up, and you can take a peek at it right here. This is the official website where they talk about all of this stuff. Now, here's the thing. On the webpage now, they have a Toyota warranty statement, basically right up top here. And the Toyota warranty statement, come on, man, this is ridiculous. For a company that offers track days with their vehicles, okay? They talk about participation in high-performance driving events, HPDE, or events, including events sponsored by Toyota or its affiliates. They say, damage to the vehicle or components that occur as a result of abuse or misuse of the vehicle while participating in a high-performance driving event or track and or off-highway use is not covered. Okay, so there's some legalese going on there. But that means, though, they say that there could be damage caused during a track day that they wouldn't cover under warranty. Well, they also qualified damage in the case of this other GR86 owner as having the car at one point in its entire life exceed 85 miles per hour. They qualified that as damage. Now, that car did 114 at one point in its life. They qualified that as damage that would exceed the bounds of the warranty. Guess what you do at track days? You go fast. That means, by this definition, Toyota's actual track day that they offer you with the car voids your warranty. Now, is it going to void every warranty? Probably not. But by this definition, it voids your warranty. That is mind-blowing. Now, Toyota's having all sorts of other issues. Issues with the Tacoma. There's an issue with sticker recall, or a recall for a sticker. There's all sorts of stuff going on. I'm out of time to get to that. We'll do that as a bonus podcast on the YouTube and elsewhere. Thanks for listening to this show. Thanks for all the fine folks at the radio stations across Colorado that get this on the air. I'll talk to you right here, same time, same place, next week. Don't go anywhere.